Anyway, let's get evil. All right. Talk villains today. Welcome back to the
Villains.
Glacier Gamble podcast, to a villainous episode with greatness and conversation and Jason Momoa. And yeah, that's what sparked the idea when we were talking about this episode. Jason Momoa had a meeting with James Gunn, and then he came out of the meeting and Saffron and
Very
like
ecstatic.
he came very, very, and he's like he almost came close to saying something. It seemed like he was like overselling it to me, but I get it. Um, and he was very excited. So he came out of the meeting saying that he's excited. He will be with the future of DC. He's excited, and he's like, "Thank you for thank you, David. Thank you,
Peter.
James, Peter. Yeah, like yeah, thank you."
Yeah.
And it probably means that he's going to become Lobo.
I also think he could play Aquaman still, too.
So play both
I think he could play both.
because
I think that's how it sounded.
a
I
couple weeks
think.
ago there was like some rumor. One of his friends told the media that he'll be playing both.
Right.
But that was before that meeting, so
Right.
nobody thought anything of it. But maybe that was something that had like maybe it's real,
Right.
and he would do both because he also said something about nobody's taking away the Aquaman's throne from me or something. So it's
Right.
like he wants to do both, I think,
Right.
but I definitely think this means he's probably going to be
Lobo.
Lobo.
Right.
Um, but when you think Jason Momoa, like what do you picture? Like, when you put him as a character, what do you picture?
Um.
Just in general, based
So
on what
so the,
you
what I
view
what
of
I'm
him.
basing him off of is Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones,
Okay.
which is a big, fierce, um, just a big, fierce brute, I
Sure.
guess. And then Aquaman. Was different because I think the original kind of design of Aquaman with the and Jason
Orange
Momoa
and
had like
green.
the suit. It was kind of like gold and like
Yeah.
dark green.
Instead of like a neon green, orange,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, and blonde hair. So when I kind of think of Aquaman, I think badass.
okay.
Um, him as Aquaman, badass. I don't think the regular Aquaman is badass. But yeah,
I think vice
badass.
versa. I think the opposite.
Sure. Yeah, so I think what did I say? Fierce, brute, badass, I guess. Those would be the
Okay.
three all B words. So
Okay. Yeah. Beer spruce badass.
yeah.
Um yeah, and I don't
How about
necessarily
you? What do you
imagine
think? What do you
I
think?
don't imagine him as a villain.
Right. Well, I mean,
Um
Lobo, kind of like the Deadpool-ish kind of thing. Not necessarily villainous, but like doing the right thing for like the right thing the wrong way.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So
See,
that's
so
Lobo is
this is gonna
essentially.
this is gonna sound like an insult,
Okay.
but I really don't mean it that way. But that whatever, it's gonna be taken that way anyway.
Okay.
Um, I don't think we've seen Jason Momoa's fit because I'm not wowed by anything he's done yet, and yet
Sure.
I still think he's a good actor.
Right.
But when most of the
I
time
can
when
agree.
I
I can agree with that. I think
okay,
he could fit as Aquaman. But I also think that the DCEU version of Aquaman has held him back on
yeah,
how badass he could be.
yeah.
So yeah, 100%.
So I don't think like, and we some other movies he's been. I think he's only been able to be a villain before like one other time.
Yeah, he's done some shows. Sure.
Right.
So
So I don't know if we've necessarily seen maybe it's just like none of it's what he wants to be. Maybe it's he's still progressing as an actor. Maybe it's deeper than
sure.
that. I don't know. But so far I haven't seen anything of his where I was necessarily wowed by it.
Sure.
And I think I've when he did talk about the first time he played a villain, he said, fucking finally.
Right.
So he was really excited when he got to play a villain that time. This time with that video, thank you, thank you, thank you. Ooh, like he was just
Yeah. Right.
jacked, just so excited for it. I feel like this might be his opportunity. Like Lobo might be what I mean, obviously, when we said Sabretooth, if
Right.
he were to just leave DC and
Sabretooth and
come,
Craven, he could have done
yeah,
really well too.
yeah,
Yeah.
but maybe instead of that, maybe he is a villain. Like maybe Jason Momoa's wow moment, his I don't know. There's probably a acting term for your one shining role that everybody always remembers you for. But
Sure.
like, I feel as though with his excitement, with how I've felt about any of his performances in the past, this could be his moment.
I mean I agree with that. I think in just from that little video and like his excitement level from what we assume to be like Lobo news. I think him playing a character that's a bit unhinged is kind of something he wants to do. Like
Yeah.
I just feel like that's something uh that like he himself wants to do because he is very like even just that woohoo like yeah like let's go like that is like
Woohoo!
that going into like Lobo would be like I don't know like him killing someone and like freaking out or something. So I think that yeah I think it'll be an amazing fit. And we always like want actors who want to play the characters too. I think that that's a big level of like excitement for them and they're going to dedicate more to it. So
Side note, the upside down skull behind you just feels very fitting, by the way. Just
the upside down skull.
skull.
Yeah.
That just feels
Yeah.
fitting. I just want side
Yeah.
note there. But anyway, that made me think while I was like thinking about Jason Momoa, reading what was going on, all that's watching the videos. What makes a good villain, specifically like comic book movie villain?
Right. So the my favorite villains are very like I think the thing is for me villains there needs to be a big price to pay.
Okay.
Like so like Thanos for instance. Like Thanos in Infinity War was like okay, like yeah, this is you don't really know because Marvel's never did that before. Like did that before. The stakes were so high, but when
Mm-hmm.
Thanos snapped, it was like, oh my god, like you know what I mean? Like holy shit, he just did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I went to go see it, and then my buddy's like, what do you think? And I was like, I was like speechless. I didn't know what to like think of it. But I love cliffhangers, so I'm for that. And then
The
like
Price is Right game for sure.
right, yeah. And then some of the other villains I like are very charismatic. So like Negan, Homelander, like those characters are very charismatic, but they're also kind of like unhinged, and a bit like off or crazy. And so
Sure.
like that's kind of how I see it. It's like if you cross the villain, their actions could be detrimental to like the heroes or whatever. So like if you cross Negan, someone's gonna die. You cross Homelander, he can just kill you. You cross Thanos, he's probably gonna kill you too. So that's my opinion on villainy. So you think of like the big villains for me, it's like Negan, Homelander, Swiper from Dora the Explorer.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
Mm-hmm.
my top three there probably. But,
Yeah. Swiper's a little low, but I get it. I feel the same way about the stakes being high, but I also want the villain to hit, like their stakes to be portrayed. Like Thanos, we got to see him have to kill Gamora. Spoiler alert.
right.
Um
Yeah,
and we also got to see him when he was, when he had won and he was in the field and sitting there. He didn't necessarily look happy.
right.
Like he just looked like he finished grocery shopping.
Right. Yeah.
Like and so I want the villain to feel like there's something at stake. I don't want the villain to feel like this is just another day.
Right.
But I also love like that's when I want that type of villain that also has something to lose. I want that to be like a serious villain.
Sure.
I also love the complete opposite, just sociopath out of their mind.
Right.
Like for those who don't know anything about me, I tend to root for the villains.
Yeah. No, I
I
like the villains too.
not necessarily because like, oh, I like the acting. I tend to
Right.
prefer it. Oh, I like the whatever the character specifically. No, like I tend to genuinely like and agree with a lot of their points that they make. Like Thanos has a point.
Right.
Um, the villain from Kingsman. If you've never seen it, Samuel L. Jackson. I don't agree with their methods, but sometimes
Right.
I often,
Right.
I'm watching. I'm like, villains have points.
Right.
So I tend to think about villains a lot,
Right.
and
Or
so
anti-heroes can kind of
Samuel L.
be thrown in
Jackson and
that
yeah,
same, since we're talking about Lobo, like anti-heroes can kind of be thrown in that mix.
yeah,
Um,
And I know Kingsman's not a superhero movie, but James Bond, he's
right.
close.
Sure.
He's Batman
Right.
without the suit.
Right.
So, like in Samuel L. Jackson's character, he seems sociopathic. His one thing is he doesn't look at people. He doesn't like blood, so he doesn't like watching people get killed. That's why he makes people kill each other because he can't do it himself.
Sure.
But outside of that, he's just like he doesn't seem to think he has anything at stake. He just seems overconfident, usually overconfidence, and those tend to be easy to defeat villains.
Right.
So like I want them to be completely off the wall, but I think a perfect example of completely off the wall but still human would be like Harley Quinn, Joker. So like I either want that serious, powerful villain with a story, a purpose, and just like genuinely feels intimidating and evil and like there's something huge at stake. Even Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy felt like there was something big at stake because we had never seen really an Infinity Stone talk and
Right.
we hadn't really experienced all of that yet. And so it just, I don't know, the stakes felt a lot higher. So Ronan, I thought, was a good villain, played really well, dark.
Yeah. Lee Pace auditioned for Star-Lord,
All right.
did not get it, and then they gave him Ronan essentially. So yeah.
So I think what makes a good villain, obviously, context matters. It depends what type of villain you're going for. But overall, can Jason Momoa provide what we were just talking about? You said badass.
Right.
If he's
Yeah.
gonna
Lobo's badass.
if
Lobo's
they
a
go crazy
badass. So
Lobo, like just
yeah,
like some crazy just murderer,
probably.
badass kind of fits there. But if they go with deeper story, more intense, maybe even anti-hero.
Yeah. For Lobo, I feel like it's a mix of like Punisher, Star-Lord, um, Punisher and Star-Lord, maybe like that. Like if that's kind of like a mix of because he's like from space, but he's also murderous. So that yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I picture it. It'd be like a mix of Punisher and Star-Lord.
So I think
So
I think he can portray it. I think he can portray a good
he's
Lobo
got the
and
look too.
provide
I mean,
those
like the
traits.
look. He's got the look down already. Like for
Yeah.
like how you imagine Lobo would look. That
Which
is Jason Momoa. So
I don't necessarily care if the actor looks a lot like the character, like the actual
sure.
comic book character. I don't mind when they change it. Um because a lot of time, even if they want it to be comic book accurate, they can
Right.
do prosthetics, makeup.
Right.
They
Like
can do
Negan,
so
for
much.
instance, wasn't comic book accurate because Negan's like big and broad, and Jeffrey D. Morgan's like slim, but Jeffrey D. Morgan's charismatic and intimidating, and so he fits it.
And
He
has three
so fits
legs.
it. Right. Yeah.
Um, which is another thing I like being a consistent trait. Just just the arrogance, like you just got something swang in there.
Right.
Like Poison Ivy when she talks in the DC comics, just talks like she just got
That BDE. Yeah.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think Jason Momoa has that naturally.
Right.
Like he when he's not in character, he tends to protrude that. That's
Right.
actually fun fact. My coworker, we were talking about Jason Momoa the other day. That's why she doesn't like him.
Because he's
He seems so
confident.
confident. It's
He also seems
arrogant.
very like I just saw a post on Jason Momoa today that said, um, he was getting a picture with someone, or it was like a fan thing, and the girl was in a wheelchair, and he's like, can I
And
like,
he held her
yeah,
up.
can I hold you up or something? She's like, I don't know, I'm pretty heavy, and he goes, I'm pretty strong.
Yeah.
So he
Yep.
wanted her to have like a picture of her like standing with him. So
Even if
yeah.
she was like from the picture, she did not look heavy. So
Right.
like she calls herself heavy, but if that lady was listening, you're not heavy.
Sure.
and Jason Momoa is strong.
Yeah.
And from the picture, it was very sweet. It was
Yeah.
very heartwarming. And that he said, "I know I can lift you. Like I'm very
Right.
strong." Like that's that confidence.
Right.
But
Sure.
even if he couldn't lift her, he would have found a way. Like,
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. I like him a lot, and it's
Right.
not like the first time I've heard something about heard a story like that about him. Um, so I'm sure he's a great guy. I just think as Lobo, I can definitely see it.
Right. Yeah, I'm pushing
think
for him.
I think it's one of those things we haven't seen what he's supposed to like. Who's the character he was supposed to be?
Sure.
Like, I think Tom Cruise found that in Mission Impossible. Like he's
Sure. Yep.
supposed to be the lead in
Right.
Mission Impossible. Like
Right.
he might be great in all. He might be great in multiple other movies.
Sure.
His one role where he's clearly like meant this character was meant to be him. I feel like is that and.
Right.
Some people feel that I think that's why there's always all this debate about Spider-Man because a lot of people I don't think feel like we've had that. That's my Spider-Man. I think a lot of people feel that way about Miles Morales, but would they feel that way if it's live action Miles?
Yeah.
I don't know. And so like I feel people hit that Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man.
Yeah.
That might not necessarily be his character, but like anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Jason Momoa, I do think this could be his 20 years from now, he has people going
role,
like,
sure.
"Can I take a picture with you, Lobo?"
Right. Yeah.
So I thought, and then also let's talk people. Somebody's going to start a villain who probably won't stay a villain. Speaking of like, can they do it? Will Poulter. First images came out of him.
Yeah, it looks good.
And I thought he looked great.
Yeah.
Which I'm biased.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm gonna give honest opinions on him because I'm biased. I really like him a lot.
Yeah.
But he looked really good. And I definitely think he has the chops to do it. I think
100%.
he definitely fits this anti-hero turned hero mold way more than a true psychotic villain.
For those of you who don't know, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Endgame, but if you're watching this channel and you haven't seen Endgame, so Tony Tony Stark obviously did the snap. In the comics, Adam Warlock actually does the snap because he is strong enough to absorb the radiation of the snap to save everyone. So, but Adam Warlock is a bad dude before he's a good dude. So
I'd probably let him absorb me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, he's in Maze Runner. I believe he's like the super annoying kid in Lion Witch in the Wardrobe 3 or Chronicles of Narnia 3.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that's him. But yeah, I think he's gonna do well. I think Jason Momoa is gonna be a good villain.
Kang, Jonathan Majors.
Came out that in Loki season 2, there's going to be a new type.
Be a different Kang.
It's an inventor.
It's gotta be a different one.
It's an inventor form of Kang for season 2.
Sure.
So not sure what that necessarily means, but I take that as a Kang that's trying to invent giant mechanisms that can help change the course of history in terms of into what he views as a more positive way.
Yeah, I mean, if then and that Kang still's got to be. They all got to be like responsive that there is other Kangs out there. So he's got to be inventing something that he also knows that other Kangs either might be searching for or might abuse if he doesn't like do it right. I
think one of the things that's going to tie it all together is the mentioning of He Who Remains.
Sure.
Like I feel like any of the different ones that the different versions that know of He Who Remains are probably that upper tier of Kangs.
Right. The ones that have been kind of closed off this main universe.
Right, because He Who Remains talked about how there are still those who hunt him, and those are the ones to fear or whatever. And I think if they mention him, like I think Kang the Conqueror is definitely going to mention He Who Remains an Ant-Man at some point after he beats the shit out of Paul Rudd, and he'll still look 20.
Right.
I also wanted to say I just noticed this the other day. The girl that it plays Cassie,
right? The Ant-Man? recast sort of.
The recast is the girl from Detective Pikachu.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I just realized that the other day because I was rewatching Detective Pikachu.
Yeah. No, I think it's gonna. I think I'm very excited for that movie. I need to get tickets. I'll probably get tickets here soon, but that's February 17th. Um,
Quantumania.
yeah, Quantumania. Yeah,
Quantumania.
we'll go catch that. We'll have a nice juicy episode about that.
Sorry, I think must be like a helicopter or something. So I was like, I thought it sounded like a car because we have snow on the ground. So you know,
Sure.
like the crumple sound that
Right.
cars make on snow. It sounded
Yeah.
like right outside my window. I was like, we're good. Do you have anything else that makes a villain, or do you think you said what?
I don't know. My favorite villains are Negan and Homelander. So like that's my top villains,
Sure.
comic book character villains, and then
I
probably
guess
Thanos. I guess.
mine overall are just the ones that have something to root for, something where when the hero is eventually, because of they always are, eventually is looked at like as maybe the one who's in the wrong.
Right.
I want it to be believable. So I want the villain to be able to make it feel believable. I feel like
Yeah.
Red Skull does a pretty good job of that.
I think
But
a lot of people talked about this. If you were following The Walking Dead from Negan's point of view, like Negan's side from the beginning, Rick would be the villain.
yeah,
So like
yep,
Rick's group would be the villain,
exactly.
and so yeah, if you were following Thanos from the
If you were
beginning,
following the governor,
yeah,
Rick's people are again the
right,
outsiders that
sure.
infiltrated.
So yeah, if you're following the villain and the hero is like the hero's the bad guy in a sense. If I mean, there's a point where like the villain is doing wrong, like, and so you can kind of judge like, is my villain actually the villain? So like if you're following Negan's group, you're doing the same stuff that Rick's group is doing. You're killing people that are opposing you just to keep your group alive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then Rick's group is the villain because he's killing your people or your group or whatever. But like Thanos going like, would you be cheering for Thanos if you were following Thanos from the beginning? Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna get these stones and wipe out half of everyone. Like, could
Right.
they make that believe like be like, oh, okay, yeah. Probably not,
I
I
mean,
guess.
Thanos does the best you can
Right.
to make it like as close to believable or rooting for as you can, but you know, murdering half the planet, like or half the universe, like it could be viewed as you know genocide. Well, with that because that's what it is.
Also, right, genocide, right. But he also kind of saved everyone, if you think about it,
Exactly.
because like
Yeah.
he wiped out half of the people, but that didn't cause Tiamat from being born quicker.
Yeah.
And so the way that he did it, like he gave
It
the Eternals enough time to stop Tiamat, which ended up
right.
saving everyone. So
So technically, Thanos. There's your positive spin. Thanos
right,
saved us all,
yeah,
and he let some people go 5 year time travel.
yeah,
Like some of these people came back that me and you that would be coming back still being we're 21, right? That's how old we
right,
are. Still
right.
being 21 in
I just turned
2028.
22, so
Okay, so still
yeah,
being 22 in 2028.
yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay.
I'm definitely not old and
Do you
broken.
think? Okay, do you? This is just completely random now. But it's still villainous. Do you think that He Who Remains obviously knew of all the Kangs
Hmm.
around? Do you think the Kangs were conscious of what He Who Remains was doing?
No,
Because He Who Remains
I don't
wrote
think
the
all of them did.
script. He Who Remains wrote the script up until Thanos died, or I don't know where exactly it went to, but he was the one who had Ant-Man trapped in the quantum realm. Right? Like he wrote that into the script for Ant-Man to be trapped in the quantum realm and then get out and essentially save everyone. Now, that same Ant-Man is meeting another Kang.
Yeah,
So like, I don't know, there's some connection. I don't know. I'm just kind of shooting the shit, I guess. But they're like,
Okay.
He Who Remains let Ant-Man save everyone, like wrote that into the story.
Yeah.
And then now Ant-Man is conversing with another Kang. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, really.
I liked it. I liked where you were going with it. I wasn't sure
Thanks.
where it was going to end up, but I like the idea of maybe Ant-Man being some sort of what are those called? A true point in time? Is that what it's called? When it's the theory of time travel is like a point that if it didn't happen, nothing else could happen, so it has to happen.
So you're talking about like What If episode 3 or 5 or whatever,
yeah,
where Christine Palmer's death was a finite point in time or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
make
yeah.
Ant-Man that. So they always say what if canon.
Right.
Maybe they bring in that term, the finite point or whatever, and say that Ant-Man interacting with two separate Kangs is a finite point.
Right.
Ant-Man,
Tony Stark's death is
has to come into contact with two forms of Kang somewhere.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah, I think that was good talk. I think we got a good amount of like what makes a good villain. What do you think makes a good villain? Let us know in the comments.
Who are your favorite villains? I got Negan, Homelander, and Swiper.
Mine's Venom from the comics.
Okay.
Loki technically is a villain, but
and both anti-hero kind of thing now.
Yeah. And then probably Joker.
Yeah, I'm surprised you never brought up like even just Barry Keoghan's Joker from like the deleted scene or whatever like that.
Yeah, he's like fun. We don't know enough about him yet for me to like build an opinion. I think he'll be able to do it just because he's a really good actor. But since we're on like a dark, heavy, villainous, whatever like level, we have been a podcast that's open about like mental health in the past. And we just passed a day, like a couple days ago, that was like the day of the highest ranking of depression or like highest suicide rates, like a couple days ago. So if you're feeling sad or down out there, just know it's gonna get better, and seek help if you need it. Just wanted to give people a little reminder. I figured we were talking about something heavy that happened, and I was like, you know what? I want to bring that up. Remind people it's okay. And I also want to let you all know you look great today. G.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you. Have no regrets.